So we took the Canyon Country Foursquare Church when it was virtually a dead church, and had never pastored before, but it was there that God would speak to us about teaching the people who they are in Christ. And in the midst of that, we dug up a sign, cleaning up the old building. The sign was the sign of the church that had been buried years ago, and the Lord spoke to my heart that the people here had forgotten who they are. They've forgotten their name, they've forgotten who they belong to, and that our assignment in Canyon Country, California was to teach the people who they were in Christ. And so we set out to do that, and the church began to thrive and grow, and we went to multiple services and finally 4 services, and we thought it was really, really happening, and we were looking for a different building that we could move to and couldn't find one. We were excited about what God was going to do in that place in the future. But it's at that time that the Lord spoke to Terry and I about leaving there and coming here to the Antelope Valley and starting a new work. So it was a great challenge for us to leave our thriving church in the Santa Clarita Valley, where our children were growing, that all their friends were there, and to leave and come back here to the Antelope Valley, an area that was thriving and growing so quickly. But it was a great challenge for us. And so with a heavy heart, we came and would stop here in this vista point, and we would pray, God, give us this valley. God, we'd cry out, give us this valley. And the Lord spoke to my heart that He would answer our prayer when we prayed the right prayer. And so I said, God, what prayer should I be praying? And He said, pray, God, give us to this valley. And so we began to pray a new prayer, God, give us to this valley. And I said, God, how will we reach this valley? And He said, your job, your assignment is to help people in this valley who are saying no to God to say yes to God. We said, Lord, how will we do that? And He said, you'll do that by loving them, by mending them, by training them, and by sending them. And so we set out to do that. And the first thing we did is just love people with all of our hearts. And then we began to look for ways that we could mend, because God was bringing broken people into our lives. And so we had to find ways to mend them. But then people were saying no to God because they didn't know how to serve God. They didn't know how to do the things God wanted them to do. So God says, your job is to train them, to equip them to do the work of ministry. And then ultimately to send them, to release them to God's call on their life, whatever that would be, whether it be in the local church or to go as far away as another country, that we were to equip them and train them to do that work. And so we came here with no people, with no place to meet and no money, and began the work that we call the Highlands Christian Fellowship. We came here to the east side of Palmdale to a little school called Desert Rose Elementary School. The school wasn't built completely then. They had a small modular auditorium, and we asked if we could rent that on the weekends, and they allowed us to come in and rent it on the weekends. And we stood here on this campus, on the sidewalks, outside the modular, wondering if we would get 30 people on Easter to come to service. We stood out there and were absolutely amazed at our very first miracle. 126 people arrived for that first service on Easter Sunday in 1989 here on the Desert Rose campus. We quickly outgrew that little modular. Everybody jumped in and worked and helped to start this new church. We didn't have a lot of things that belonged to us. We had to actually borrow a worship team to begin our services with. We didn't have equipment, we didn't have lighting like we have today, we didn't have the speaker system like we have today, but what we had was a lot of heart. And so we did everything with heart. We sang with lots of heart. We served with lots of heart, loved on people with lots of heart. We taught Sunday school classes, everybody doing their part with lots of heart. And so here we were growing in this little modular auditorium. So when we were on the Desert Rose campus and we were exploding with growth, 3 elderly ladies approached me and she said, "Pastor Ken, we want to tell you that you're not the reason that all of this growth is happening." And I was a little bit taken back by their comment because I certainly knew that this was the hand of God. I said, "Well, tell me about that." And they said, "Well, you see us, we have white hair, the 3 of us, we have white hair." They said, "When we still had dark hair, we started praying that God would send a church just like the Highlands Christian Fellowship. And we believe that this is just an answer to our prayer." And so the church continued to grow, and we outgrew that campus at Desert Rose. And so we moved here on Sarah Highway in a newly built industrial building. And we came in to build one level for a church. And as we began the development, God spoke to my heart and said, "You're not to build just one level, but you're to build 2 levels." And so we did. We put in a steel frame and built a 2nd story, and we had an auditorium that would seat 350 people. We went to 4 services in order to meet the need of all the people that God was pouring. And as you can tell, this is a place that's out of the way. It doesn't look like a church building. In fact, we had not come here to the Antelope Valley to attract people from existing churches. We weren't looking for people that were already Christians and established in a church and growing in their faith, but we wanted to reach the people that needed to say yes to God. But we did the best we can. We were here for about 15 years and grew to more than 1,000 people gathering. But we outgrew it, and we knew we had to move on. We knew that God had another place, a place of promise. Now keep in mind that God had given us the name, the Highlands. Now we weren't sure what that was all about, except God gave us that name, the Highlands. Of course, this is the high desert area, but we called our church the Highlands. Little did we know that God would eventually move us for a permanent home in an area called the Highlands area near Highland High School. So we began to search for a place where we could build a permanent home for this congregation that had grown to more than 1,000 people. And so we searched all over the community, and we looked at existing buildings as well as empty land. And each time we found a place, the city would inform us that it was not in their master plan. The city told us that if we could actually get permission from all the different owners to build on this land, that it would be our very first miracle on this campus. And we were able to, with God's help, to be able to get the permission we needed to purchase the lands and to be able to meet the requirement to build this campus. And so we built the first phase, is what you're looking at now, the first phase of the Highlands Christian Center campus. So there's still room to build on this campus. You see, God's promise is that He will continue to do great things among us. And in fact, we believe that what God will do from this point forward, the promise of the future, is greater than what He's done in the past. And so we're looking forward to the story of the Highlands Christian Fellowship continuing on even to the next generation. In fact, we see God raising up strong leaders in the next generation right now. And we're excited about what He will do in the future as we reimagine the future of the Highlands Christian Fellowship.